Welcome back to the show, everybody. Spent the morning prepping for today's episode. We're in the old shop. Part of the preps have been warming the place up. This doesn't have the heater that is actuated by a switch on the wall. Rather, the box of wood from the wood piles. So we'll get this one stocked back up. Just coming back out from lunch right now, so yeah, it's been a whole morning worth of kicking the tires and lighting the fires, getting everything ready for the work we'll do. And back to the new shop for just a minute. So originally my plan for winter projects was finish the H first. The trouble is, because I sprayed this last paint batch so late in the year, it just has not set up enough to really be able to handle it without having to take, too many precautions. So I have been forced just to let this stuff just sit in here with the heat on and cure. So, I don't know, might take a month. I guess that means the only other alternative is X231 here. I know. I need to take a moment to let that sink in myself. So, picking up where we left off. Don't think about it, dude. Just dive in. Okay, we had the Bolster down at the radiator shop so that they could do the custom new radiator core build. They needed to use this for some dimensions. So we've got everything back. That means we can resume with the line boring job that we have to do to this brazed and repaired end of the casting here. So we need to take that out to the 2.5 inch diameter, inside diameter, that this end has. Looking down the tube, you can see there's quite a lot of material that we are going to have to remove. Not a big deal. So the goal of today's episode is to just take this out to a straight 2.5 ID. You can see it's still quite rough in there. That's just all the raw brazing surface finish left. So to do that, we're going to take this to the old shop now that I've got it nice and warm. Throw this on Senior's old Shepherd gap bed lathe. We've got the adapters on each side to attach it to the carriage. So that old lathe is not only going to power the boring bar, it's going to act as the feed mechanism for it as well. We found Senior hiding over there.
Need some help lifting that on?
Yeah, I probably will. Boring bar alignment collars go in. And now the boring bar. Now the drive shaft comes from the lathe chuck, and this is the same drive shaft we used with the Caterpillar D2 starting engine main bearing line boring setup. Okay, there we are. 2 set screws secure this yoke to the flats of the boring bar. Roll the other one around, You hear the belt dressing on this old flat belt lathe making noise. Makes a lot of difference though when you go to use it. There. There's our drive system. And test fire. Lights dim for maximum effect. Good so far. Should be good for a feed. I like it. Alright, so I'm set up with this bit in the boring bar. We're going to start out with this one and just see how well it performs. I'm probably going to have to discard this and change it out for a different bit with a custom grind on it to do the final passes, but for the rough takedown, this should work just fine. And I'm not going to engage the power feed. It's all going to be adjusted manually by hand with the crank down there. I want to see how well this is going to cut. I want to see if we're going to get any chatter in the bar because our support ends about right here. So that's not a significant overhang, but until I know how it's going to act, we're just going to go manual and just take it really slow. And the majority of our cut is going to be right down in this area here. That's the high spot currently. So we'll just ease on up to it really slow. There, it's just starting to hit. We'll have an interrupted cut like this until we get these high points taken on down. So far, so good though. No chatter yet. Nice and smooth. Alright, we're through that one. And now I need to advance the bit. This one is just being held in by a set screw. And for the rough takedown, I just kind of go by eye. I'll pull it out 20 thousandths or so. For more precise adjustments, you can put a set screw in behind it so that you'd loosen the one that cinches it and then just do a little bit of a turn, which would push it up a little ways and then cinch it back down. Like I said, for this takedown, that's not too critical. I'm feeding it by hand, so we just eyeball it. Now we're starting to round it out, cutting quite a bit more down through the lower areas. Nice chips rolling off so far. Starts going easier when it turns into less of an interrupted cut. There, we're finally starting to cut all the way around, 360 degrees. You hear it in the cutter. You don't have that that skip, that interruption. Really nice chips coming off this thing too. Alright, we can pull this first bit. We are finished with that. I can't get any more extension out of it, but it worked very well for roughing that out. Let's get that bar pulled through so we can get a better look at the inside bore so far. I measured this and we've roughed it out to match what the sleeve bore is, which is 2.375. So now we've got this 45-degree shoulder right here that takes that snap ring bore out to a straight 2.500. So that's the distance that we still have to go. That first bit did very well. Made some very, very nice chips, no chatter. So I've got a longer bit that I just made out of a live center drill. So yeah, I like to use these to make my own bits because this bar takes 1/4 inch round stock, and these are hardened all the way through. So I've got my set screw flat on there. I think I've got a good profile on the end. We'll just have to put it in, test it out. But all in all, pretty happy with how this is going. And it may be a bit of an optical illusion. I don't know if y'all have picked it up yet. It looks like we're boring this a little bit off center because it gets so thin down here and we're so thick up here. You can't go by that. You have to match it to what the parent bore originally was, and we are coming in. You can see by the end of the cut there, we're matching it perfectly. So this is so irregular out here because it was built up by hand, and you'll see how we use this rule for a straight edge. You see how much further out we are at the front edge here than the back. That's about how crooked that is. And this is going to have to be machined back itself, probably a good 1/4 inch. And the reason why it looks so thin on the bottom, you see how that starts angling up like that? So that's all right. Most of that's going to be chewed back to probably about here anyway. So this face should end up becoming a lot more uniform once we get some of that excess material removed off of it. But first, we need to take that out to straight 2.5. Cutting very well. I must have got all the angles correct. Alright, so I've adjusted the bit again, and I've made most of another pass. You can see where I stopped just in there, and we're about 20 thousandths from our 2.5 finished ID right now. And this is where the chickens may start coming home to roost, because we're just about to break through the last of the rough brazing edge in there. And from miking these bores, I know there's been a little bit of distortion to this one from the heat and the brazing process that was performed earlier. It's not a lot, but this is where we see if we're going to start breaking through the old brazing, or the new brazing I should say, and get into the old cast iron. This last little bit is really going to tell the tale. So far so good, but we may start to hear an interrupted cut shortly. Just about through on the bottom. I'm just feeding it really slow too. Alright, taking care of that last rough edge right now. Here's our interrupted cut. Okay, and we are not out to cast yet, so that is good. Tells us everything we've done is very well centered with the original bore, or what's left of it. There we go, full depth. Okay everybody, final pass, and again I'm about 3/4 of the way in. And I believe we're going to drag a little bit of cast iron on this when we get way back to the inside edge. I don't know how this bit is going to do because it's cut primarily for brass. Cast iron bit has a lot different end profile on. But I've set it just to hopefully skim a little bit of that cast iron surface. So let's do it. Otherwise I'm happy with the inside diameter. And the bore is getting out to the point where we can actually have a better view of what's happening in there with the camera, so that's good. Alright, I can see up toward the top, this range up here, we're just getting to the end of the brazing. expect to hear a different sound on the bit as it starts to drag that cast. Okay, here's just our rough edge, some old brazing slag. There, we're just skimming cast. Taking care of the last few high bits at the bottom as well. Just about there. There it is. Let's vacuum it out and see if I'm still happy with it. Back a ways, and that's actually very, very nice. Let's see if we can see up. The light's not right. Going by feel, just a shadow ridge in there where the brazing stops and the cast iron starts. Very, very happy. We can pull this bit, get the bar pulled out, have a better look still. And now we get a better look. Satisfactory results all around. So now we test fit the old hydraulic end plug, and perfect fit, just how it should be. And it was very important to keep that 45-degree step intact, you know, to not run the cutter bit in so far to start cutting that back, because once again the sleeves that press in for that power piston have this raised lip on the one end, and when they seat fully, that raised lip will bottom out against that 45-degree step. So that's why we just needed to machine everything to the outside of that. So here's the piece that used to be there, and you can see we have quite a lot of surplus material on the outside yet. So we can take, like I said, about a 1/4 inch of this down and still be standing plenty proud as compared to the other side. And I'm not against leaving a little bit of surplus material out here just to add a little bit more strength beyond where that snap ring groove is eventually going to be cut. We're not going to do that part today, but I'll throw the bar back in here. We'll see if we can at least flush and square this end off anyhow, being that it's so crooked right now. And last little bit right off the end of my finger back there. Just need to shave it off. There it is. All right. We squared it off on the front edge. Outside edge, I should say. I like it. All right, everybody. That's the extent of the work for this episode. We took all the rough and bumpy and made it into chips, but good looking chips and a good looking end result. So not much of this is permanent. Most of this is still going to change. The only thing that's permanent is our 2.5 inch inside diameter right here. All we did is square the face, and I left this plenty deep. I really only need to have a 1/2 inch from that 45-degree bevel all the way out to this outside, and I left this a solid 5/8. We may just take that down more in the future. You reference it to this side, that doesn't stick out from that side of that casting very far, and we still have quite a bit to work with here, but it's better to leave that in place for now. It's, have it and not need it versus need it and not have it. So the next order of business is figuring out how to cut that internal snap ring groove in here. And Oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. I have a few ideas floating around. Nothing real great, but I don't really have the equipment to do that type of work or that type of a job. That means I just need to figure it out. So figure it out, we will. In the meantime, I thank you everyone for watching, and X231 work will resume again next time, and it might be building tools or it might be cutting a groove. It depends on what I come up with. So either way, I hope to see y'all back for that. Thanks again, everybody.